just riding in general, and also ways that you can help support that and stabilize that. We want to get our lower leg to be quite stable and sturdy because it makes our position more clear to our horse and more balanced while we're approaching, going over and landing off of a jump. So the first reason that a lot of riders have their lower legs swinging as they're jumping or just riding in general is because they're trying really hard to stabilize their leg by kind of squeezing it onto their horse more. But in order to do that, they actually are squeezing their knees onto their horse. So what happens is if they squeeze their knees, the weight comes out of the ball of their foot, their balance is no longer on their stirrup, it's on their knees as a pivot point, and then their lower leg is kind of just hanging out, reacting to whatever their upper body is doing. So now over a jump, if your upper body is this way and your pivot point is on your knees, your lower leg is going to go back to either counterbalance this or because you sort of just are going with the momentum. Either way, you are on your knees and then you're probably finding that you're landing on your horse's neck a bit when you're coming off the landing side of the jump. What I find really helpful is when you're warming up and also before you jump and in between your sets of jumping is to just stand straight up. Now a lot of people think that this is 2-point, okay? And 2-point is really helpful for strengthening, but I want you to find your balance. So I want you to stand straight up with the straightest knees you can find, okay? So this might make you feel like you're either going to fall backwards or you're going to fall forwards and you need to use your hands. Using your hands at first is fine to find a balance point, but ideally you can do this without your hands helping you. Now if you see, in order to do this, my foot cannot be here with my heel pushed down. It needs to be under my ear, my hip, and then onto my stirrup. So the reason that this is really helpful is because if you're walking around like this, it should feel quite easy because gravity is sort of just pulling your bones straight down. If you're leaning back or your feet are in front of you or you're leaning forward, you're going to have to be using muscles to keep yourself sort of close to the center line, where if you're just standing here, gravity should pull you down just like it holds a skyscraper straight. Does that make sense? So this cannot happen if you're squeezing with your knees, okay? It's really hard. I can't straighten my leg, put my weight in my stirrup, and squeeze my knees. If you try to do that, it's quite obvious, but you really can't. So that's a great way to find a softer knee and more balance onto the ball of your foot. The next reason that a lot of riders are finding their lower leg swinging is because they're trying to keep their heel down. Now, I'm not telling you that having your heel up is an ideal thing. Obviously, it's not. But you need to remember that heels down really just means having your heel be below your toe, okay? It's just at the level or below the level of your toe. So this is heels up, but that's heels down. It doesn't need to be like this, okay? So a lot of riders try and push their heels down, thinking that weight in their heels is going to keep their leg from swinging. But actually, instead of having the pivot point be on their knee, now the pivot point is actually on your hip. So now you're going to feel like your whole leg swings, just because you're trying to put the weight down in your heel. It also forces your feet out in front of you, where you can see here, my stirrup is not able to catch my balance anymore, right? Or, if they're really clever, the riders keeping their stirrup under them, pushing their heels down, and that's making them have to lean forward. I haven't quite found a rider yet that can sit completely straight and put their heels down without really bracing everywhere and it being really noticeable. So what you want to do, instead of just pushing your heels down, which I know a lot of people are saying, but what they're actually meaning is get your weight in your stirrup, okay? Pushing your heels down is a way to get riders to take weight out of their knees, but if you own that idea too much, it's going to just counteract what you're really wanting it to do. So instead of pushing your heels down, find the weight on your stirrup, okay? And what you can do is you can just take your feet out of your stirrups, roll your ankles a few times, bend your knee a little and your hip a little bit, get your toe into your stirrup, and let gravity and the weight just pull everything down, okay? Instead of shoving your heel down, just let it rest. And now if you're not able to comfortably do this, I'll show you a couple of different exercises on the ground, a few stretches and a few strengthening exercises to help this be a more comfortable position for you. So again, riders who are pushing their heels down need to just think more about putting their weight on the balls of their feet instead of down and into their heels. The third reason that I find a lot of riders are having swinging lower legs, or they just can't really get their lower leg to stay in one spot, is because their horse isn't in front of their leg, okay? So what you would think is riders who are riding horses that are kind of behind their leg and not forward thinking, you would think that they would just squeeze with their legs and their lower leg wouldn't be moving because they would keep trying to get their horse to go. But what happens is partly their leg gets tired of trying to bother them, okay, and get them going. But it also gets to the point where you kind of just are trying to get to the jump with all of you, right? At some point you see the jump and you're like, man, I have to get this horse over it. And if they're not giving you the feeling like they're going to take you confidently to the jump, you start emergency sort of riding harder, right? So what you want to do instead is find a couple exercises to get your horse thinking ahead and having them keep themselves in front of your leg. You can ride with a whip or a crop, you can ride with spurs, but I find that the best way to do that is just find exercises to get them thinking ahead and staying in front of your leg so that your leg can be quiet and just be used when necessary for a little bit more instead of all the time. What do you find that your lower leg does over the jump? Do you swing it forward? Does it swing back? Or have you found a way to keep your stirrup right underneath you so that you can have a nice fold? If you found this video helpful, subscribe and like this video. You can also hit the bell so that you're notified about other videos like this one.